Hello, everyone. We want to welcome you to our session today on getting the most out of your sandboxes. Joining us today is Bryce Menadue from Innovia Consulting, and we're excited to have such a good turnout today. Before I pass it over to Bryce to cover on this hot topic, I would like to remind you that we are recording this session and it will be posted to our on-demand webinar library for you to review and share with anyone. And we do ask that if you have any questions, please feel free to type those out during the webinar, and we will get them answered during our Q&A time at the end of our session. So now I'm going to pass it on to Bryce to kick off our presentation.
Perfect. Thank you, Angie, and thank you all for joining me today. My name is Bryce Menadue, and I'm a developer consultant here at Innovia Consulting. And today we're going to be talking about Business Central Sandboxes. First thing to answer is, what are sandboxes? A sandbox environment is a non-production instance of Business Central. And isolated from production, a sandbox environment is the place to safely explore, learn, demo, develop, and test the service without the risk of affecting the data and settings of your production environment. Just like anything else Microsoft, we have options. So to get started with sandboxes in Business Central, it is important to understand the different options you have at hand. You can either choose to run a sandbox environment deployed as a Business Central service, or you can run a container-based image, either hosted on an Azure virtual machine or locally. Both options provide the AL development tools. The container-based sandbox additionally provides access to the C-side development tools. You can also choose to run a sandbox environment with production data using the Business Central Admin Center. The following table outlines the most important capabilities on the offered sandbox environments for Business Central. A couple key ones that I want to point out is that the online sandbox, you will not have access to the database since this is managed by Microsoft, but you will have access to AppSource to install any third-party extensions as you please. For the container or local sandbox, you will have access to the database either through SQL Server Management Studio or C-side, but you'll be limited and not be able to access AppSource. And with that, we're going to hop into a little bit of demo on how you can create, delete, and manage some of these environments. So from my Business Central production environment, I can go ahead up to the URL and replace that word production with admin. The URL will look something like businesscentraldynamics.com, your tenant ID, followed by admin. Pressing enter on that, now I'm taking the Business Central Admin Center. And from here, we can see two different environments I have listed, a production and a sandbox test for September 2019. But now let's say I need a new test environment for the month of October. Well, DESI is coming up to the top left, clicking new. And at this point, I'm presented with a side pane where I can configure this environment. First thing I'm going to want to do is select the type of sandbox. The next thing would be to rename this sandbox since our environment names cannot match that of existing. Go ahead and name this Sandbox Test October 2019. And excuse me, normally I would select my country of US for where I am, and then a version for this environment. But in this case, I want my test environment to match as close as I can to my production environment. So going back up, we can select copy environment. By default, it'll select the production environment. In my case, I have only one. And then I would come down here to create. Now, in a past life, rather than having to completely back up the database and restore, which could take anywhere from a half day to a full work day just to refresh an environment, now can happen between 5 and 20 minutes, depending on your database size. We'll let this load a couple more seconds, and we will see the new environment preparing in our list of environments. One thing to note as far as maintaining these environments is if I click on the name here, I'll be presented with some more information, such as the size that will be available when it's active, the application version, the platform version. But we'll notice that the scheduling information is not here yet. What we can do to ensure that Sandbox gets updated is set an update window. And now these updates will happen for every major update. So 14.5, 15.0, and going forward. I want mine to run between, we'll say 5:30 p.m. until 6 a.m. And now I can save it. It's important to note that without an update window, these environments, in fact, will not be updated. So make sure you have this window set each time you make a new environment. Now returning back to my list of environments, I really don't need my September test environment anymore. So to clean this up a little bit, we can go ahead and highlight the one we want, and then we can delete this environment. You'll be prompted with a, are you sure you want to delete this? And we're going to click yes. Let it load for a couple of seconds. Now we can see that this environment is removing, while my test for October is still preparing. That concludes the demo on how to create, delete, and manage some of these environments. And now a couple other notes. For the online sandboxes, as of right now, Microsoft has limited us to 3 sandboxes per tenant. And another piece of information that only admins can actually access that Business Central Admin Center. These admins can include internal tenant administrators, admin agents, or help desk agents. The internal administrators are the system admins, IT professionals, or super users of the customer's company who are assigned the global admin role in the Office 365 Admin Center. The admin agent and help desk agent roles are assigned through the Microsoft Partner Center for the partner that is associated with the tenant. These roles have access to the Business Central tenant as delegated administrators. That will conclude my quick overview on sandboxes in Business Central. And at this time, I'm going to go ahead and open up the floor to any questions.
Thank you, Bryce. We just have one question so far that came through. How many sandboxes should I have? Did I miss that portion?
That's a really good question. And no, you did not miss the portion of that question. Here at Innovia and some experiences that I've been through, it's safe to have a development environment sandbox and then even a test environment sandbox. And potentially you could have a third if maybe a consultant has a customer demo coming up. You could spin up a Kronos sandbox for that demo, blow it away when you need to, make a new one at your desire. But you are still limited to only 3 as of today.
Okay, thank you. And are there any costs involved?
As of today, Microsoft has informed us that the online sandboxes are rolled into the Business Central subscription. If you are hosting it locally, that's at your own on your own server. If you're hosting it through Azure, then you are paying per server, per capacity. I don't have all the specific pieces of that in front of me, but it would be costing depending on what you need.
Okay, thank you. And we do have another question. Are sandboxes unique to each user? And if so, can you share sandboxes?
So to answer that question, sandboxes are not unique to each user, but let me go back to that demo page where I was. I missed this point here. These URLs here are actually how you're going to access these sandboxes. So whoever has this URL has access to that sandbox. Alternatively, you could switch between the two sandboxes by adjusting the name of the environment in the URL. So if I wanted to go from my sandbox test October 2019, if this loads up, I would just replace that with production or replace it with sandbox dev or what other names the sandbox is from the environments page.
All right, thank you very much for that explanation. If anybody has any further questions for Bryce, please go ahead and type those into the questions box and we'll get those addressed for you. All right, it does not look like there are any further questions at this time, so I just want to thank everyone for attending and thank you, Bryce, for presenting today. And I just want to let you know that we do have some more webinars coming soon. Tomorrow, October 24th, we have Data Masons presenting on accelerating the journey to Dynamics 365 Business Central with Data Masons EDI. And then next Tuesday, the 29th, we have Charge Logic presenting on more sales, more places. So check out our website for more of our upcoming events, and that's innovia.com/events. We also want to mention our podcast that is going on. It's called the Innovia Conversation. You can find out about all the different podcast platforms to listen to on our podcast page, and that's innovia.com/podcast. So check out the selection and subscribe so you'll get notified when the new episodes air. All right, well, thank you again for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you again soon on another Innovia webinar. Have a great day, everyone. Thanks, Bryce.